Okay, so let's get started. Common traps with websites is what we are doing today. I'm Jane, I'm your coach, and this is a bit of a new topic just because I do a lot of reviews for Tourism Events Queensland. I review a lot of tourism operator websites, and these are some of the things. Most websites I see, I have to say, are really good. These are just one or two of the things that I see very commonly in the websites that need a little bit of an attention. And I just wanted to make you aware of them today so that you can go back and have a look at your own website. They're not really awful, but hopefully what I'm telling you today will help you to make your website a better sales and communication tool and a better showcase for your business. Little housekeeping just before we start. I have got everyone muted so that your background noise doesn't distract everyone else, so you won't be able to talk to me during the webinar. However, do feel free to type your question in the question panel, which you should have on your control panel as well. I'm happy to take questions as we go. I'll pause a couple of times during the webinar and just check if there are any questions. If I do not get to your question, I will get to it this afternoon. We can either stay on the line a little bit after the webinar, but if you do have to go at 12, I completely understand, and I will have a look at the webinar record after it's finished, and I'll make sure I get back to you this afternoon by email. We are recording today's session, so I hope everyone's okay with that. We normally record our webinars and then place them up on YouTube for you to view later, so that's a great advantage for you. If you do find that you missed something or you'd like to go over this again, it will be on YouTube fairly quickly. Okay, questions just come up for me. Volume is a bit low, Jane. Have you got your volume turned up as far as you can? How is that? I've just shifted my microphone. Is that better? Can you let me know? Yes, that's better? Okay. Is that okay for when I'm not deafening people as well? All good? Let me know how we go. So occasionally the volume does tend to fluctuate a little bit. How's that? Better? Make sure that your volume on your computer is up as far as it goes. Okay, great. That your volume on your computer is up as far as it will go to. Got a hand up here. We're all okay? Great. Okay. All right, let's get started. So, common traps that I see with websites, the homepage, a couple of things on the homepage to do with the navigation, how people can find their way in your site. So your home, about, products, services, accommodation, tours, packages, prices, contact us, all those kind of major headings that are normally either across the top or down the left-hand side. Occasionally I see some issues with that. Calls to action, by which I mean telling your website visitor what you want them to do. So book now, buy now, find out more, book a tour, book a room, contact us, things that you want them to do. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on that. Social sharing buttons, social media buttons on your actual website, a little bit on that, and images. So that's all to do with the homepage. Some of these obviously will spread throughout the site as well, calls to action and images particularly, but particularly on the homepage, because that's normally obviously the first place that people go, so it needs to be good. A little bit on your booking path. On your contact form, if you have one. Analytics, I see a little bit of people not having analytics, and I'll explain to you why that's a really good idea to have them. Difficulties in updating websites, we do come across a little bit sometimes, and copy, too many words. So let's have a look. These are all the things I'm going to talk to you about today. Let's have a look at the first one, our homepage. So the purpose of your website homepage is, it's got a couple of purposes. Firstly, it's to orient the person that's come. So they've typed in your URL, or they've clicked on a link somewhere and they've come to your homepage. It's to reassure them, yes, you're in the right place. You wanted to get to acmeaccommodation.com, and yes, there's the acmeaccommodation.com URL and logo. So it's to orient the user and reassure them they've found the right site. What else is it supposed to do? It's supposed to showcase all the other things that are in your site. So it's not the place where you would do the main amount of information communication. That is for the sub pages in your site, the pages deeper in. The homepage will give you a little taste of the most important things, and it will show the way for people to find more information via your navigation or links in the text, or both. But it's not meant to be the place where you do the conversion, where you do the deal. So the things that make up a good homepage are clear, intuitive navigation. By intuitive, I mean, do the labels of the navigation and the way it's structured, is it easy for the user to find their way without help? So are they thinking what you're thinking? Have you called your navigation labels what they are likely to expect them to be called? By intuitive, I mean, is it easy to find your way without thinking? So have a look at your website navigation. Where is it located? The two conventional spots for navigation are across the top in a horizontal line or down the left-hand side. That is where users will expect to find it. If yours isn't there, I'd have a look at your website and think, can I shift it? Because it's not kind of feet nailed to the floor if it's on the right-hand side or something. But the more you can use conventions in and design your website in the way that users are used to seeing and will be expecting, the easier it will be. Because remember, online people are not 100% focused normally. They could be distracted. They've got a million things going on. They are looking for a specific task. They're impatient. They expect to make things happen. They don't want it to be hard. And so you make it easy on yourself if your website is as conventional in design as possible. So that's the first thing in navigation, and I'll show you an illustration in a minute. Clear, compelling calls to action, your booking button and your phone number. So can they find your Book Now button if you have a booking button attached to your site? Can they find it? Is it easy to see? Is it above the fold, above the bottom of the screen? Convention, again, often right-hand side somewhere is where people will be looking, because the eye starts in the top left corner conventionally in Western websites, starts in the top left corner on a homepage and kind of travels in a somewhat diagonal line normally down to the bottom right hand corner. And as they're traveling that way, they'll be encompassing everything that's on the page, but looking for cues. So if your booking button is big and clear and says Book Now and is located above the bottom of the page in a very clear place where people can see it, you're more likely to be successful than if it's small or the font's hard to read or it's below the bottom of the screen or it's buried in the left-hand side or something. And having your phone number on the home page, if you are able to take calls and inquiries by phone, is also a really good idea, preferably in the heading. But clear, compelling and big and easy is what we want. And calls to action. By compelling, I mean don't waste any words. Tell them what to do. Book now. Find out more. Buy now. Contact us. Find our location. Very clear, succinct. Don't waste any words if you can help it. And people do get a bit confronted by this. They think it's a bit rude, but it's not actually rude. What you're doing is you're helping the user to find their way. So get used to the idea of short, clear calls to action. Tell people what to do. Remarkably effective online. You wouldn't do it in print necessarily, but online, because it's a different environment, very effective. Social media links is another thing that we look for and we encourage people to do. If you are on Facebook or TripAdvisor or any of those kind of relevant social media panels, by all means link your presence on your homepage to your homepage so that people can have a look at your website but also find out about you on TripAdvisor and Facebook. Don't be afraid of losing them. It all helps. Your presence online wherever you are, if they're well managed and well done, will all help. So don't think they'll click to my Facebook page and they'll never come back. I wouldn't be too concerned about that, because browsers and browsing behavior and everything else is much more sophisticated than it was even maybe 5 years ago. And don't worry about that, about losing them if you have your social media links. Put them up there, show people you know about social media. They can find you on TripAdvisor, they can tweet about whatever, they can follow you on Twitter. I would really encourage you to do that. Your imagery, not many, I have to say now. Most websites I see have great, beautiful images that really showcase the business. So the images are very clear, they're quite large, and I think large images in terms of site, not in terms of the file size, but in terms of looking at them, are really good on a homepage. Better to have one or two beautiful large images than lots and lots of little bitty ones. So are your images attractive? Are they clear and easy to see and not too cluttered? Do they showcase the best parts of your business? If not, have a look at them and maybe do a photo shoot. Not too much text on the homepage. There is a fashion now for very long scrolling homepages, which is okay, but what you're running the risk of is people will fatigue when they have to scroll, which means they get a bit bored and lose interest. So again, if you have a lot of information, I would put it deeper in the site and make the navigation to it very clear. That is the place for a huge amount of information. Not too much text, not too much to read and not too much to scroll. And user control is the other one I see a lot of. A lot of websites have beautiful images. They have like an image slider on their homepage, which kind of scrolls through maybe 5 or so different images, and it looks great. It's a really good device for showcasing a business, but make sure the user can put a little arrow, or make sure there is some kind of control there so that the user can stop and pause on an image and go backwards and forwards and know where they are. And the reason why I say that is there might be one particular image that catches their attention more than the others. They might want to have a really good look at it. They might want to show it to their partner or whoever they're thinking of holidaying with. And if they can't do that, if they have to have all this stuff pushed at them all the time and they don't have any control and can't go backwards and forwards and can't stop and pause and look at a particular image, it's very frustrating for them. And the last thing we want is for users to be frustrated, because then they close the browser, they go somewhere else. Not all the time, but that's what you're running the risk of again. It's not hard to put controls on these slider boxes. They usually come with them built in. So ask your developer or whoever did the slider box, if you haven't got one, put it in at least backwards and forwards, preferably stop, pause, replay as well. Obviously that applies to videos as well, but as most of us are using YouTube, that's already built in. But definitely, if you do have an image slider on your homepage or anywhere else, make sure the user can control what they're looking at. Very frustrating for them, and the last thing we want is a frustrated user. So here's an example I just thought I'd show you this one. There are many great homepages that I see when I'm reviewing, and I've just kind of pulled this one out of the air because it's got a lot of things that are good, a lot of things to like on this one. Beautiful big image, you can see, of the room. And as I was just saying, you can see that they've probably got a series of images lined up. See these arrows here? This is what you need. This is what I mean by user control. Have something like this in. It might be down the bottom, or it might be a little button a little circle they can click or something, or it might be these. But one way or another, let them navigate their way through the different images that you've got. We've got a big logo here to orient the user. Yes, you're in the right place. Okay. We've got very clear accommodation across the top. It's nice and big. And you can see it doesn't look intrusive. It's big enough for people to see when they're in the hurry, or they might be, viewing it on a mobile screen, a smaller screen or whatever. It's nice and big. It's very clear. Sans serif fonts, so there's no serif fonts here. I think this is Arial, I'm not sure, but nice and big. The names they've chosen are very conventional and very intuitive. Don't be too fancy with your navigation. Use things users will be expecting. Contact, location, about, rates and bookings, features, accommodation. Okay, very simple labels, not too fancy. It doesn't matter if yours are the same as everyone else, because that's what the user will be expecting. I like this. This is what's called the active state. So I was on the home page when I took this shot, and it's just highlighted this in blue. Helps with user orientation. If I go to accommodation, it will highlight that in blue and I'll know where I am. It's just reassuring, helps with orientation of the user, which is what we want. We don't want them confused and we don't want them frustrated. Phone number here, easy to see, above the fold, little phone icon. Icons are great, especially if, again, you use conventional ones, because, again, they give the reader a visual cue. Oh, yeah, that's a phone number. Okay? If they're not familiar with 1-800 numbers for whatever reason, they know that, oh, that's a phone icon. Yep, that is a phone number. I can claw that. Book now. Very clear, contrasting colour, sans serif fonts, clear call to action, capitals, easy to see. There's nothing to fault here. There's a lot to like. So this is one way of doing it. It's not the only way of doing it, but the principles are what I wanted to get across to you today. Clear navigation, user control, logo here to orient the user, clear phone number with a little phone icon, and a very clear call to action, book now button. What else have I got? Oh yeah, I like this one as well. This is a completely different style, as you can see. But again, navigation is clear and intuitive. Home, tours, gallery, reviews, latest news, bookings, about us, contact us. To my mind, I might make this a little bit bigger so it's easier to see, but it's okay. Great phone number here. I presume that they would take their bookings via phone, so that's easy to see. Lovely action-packed picture here. No slider, which I kind of like personally, but this is good. Social share, so they must have a Facebook page, Twitter account, TripAdvisor, and they can do an RSS feed as well. So these are here, easy for people to find them on social media. Nice photos here. So these often may not be looked at, but so it's not critical information. The critical information is here, but they're still nice. They're very clear. There's a heading and a photo, heading and a photo. Clarity, really important. So I like this one as well. And this one is just another different style, but this also is fine. If your navigation, again, as I said, the conventional places are across towards the top in a horizontal bar as we've just seen, or down the left-hand side here too. Again, it's very clear: home, about us, on-site activities, local attractions, accommodation, testimonials, gallery, booking tables, easy peasy. Home is grayed out because I'm on the home page, so it's showing me again the active page, which is another nice little visual cue to help with orientation. Beautiful image. This site has beautiful images all the way through, this one in particular. Social social media presences, but also email. And again, using conventional recognized icons. That again is a visual cue. So you don't need to put the word Facebook in here and add to the clutter. This keeps it very clean, but it's familiar and people know this is Facebook, this is Pinterest, this is TripAdvisor, this is email. So keep it as clean as you can as well. I love the cleanness of this design, the lack of clutter, because what you want to do is avoid cluttering up the page. We want clarity, we want very clear communication, and we want it to be intuitive. So using something like an envelope for email, this is used kind of universally to indicate where an email is. So these kind of icons, TripAdvisor as well, can be very effective. We all know what these are, and they help our brain to remember without having a word in there and making it more cluttered. Book your stay here. To my mind, I know this is part of the brand and it's okay because it's big, so it's readable. I might have thought about putting that in a sans serif font, but this is all right because it's large. So anything as a rule of thumb above about 14-point font, if you have a serif font, is kind of okay for headings and booking buttons and things. Again, it's up to you. I would keep it clearer, but this is okay, good enough, and it fits with the brand. You can see it's the same font as their logo, so yeah, it's good. So another example, less clutter, clearer, and left-hand side navigation if that's what you prefer and that's how you've designed it. And just staying on navigation in the home page for a little bit. So your navigation should be easy to find. You should have logical groupings of information. Your labels should be intuitive, as we've just seen, and conventional, relevant information. And one thing I do see a little bit of is not all pages in the site are actually linked to the actual navigation, which means people might find a page on your site through clicking text links quite a long way down, 3 or 4 levels down, but they won't be able to find it using the navigation. And that does two things. It confuses the user because they can't find where they were, because it might, especially if it's important information, and they can't find it. The other thing it does is it doesn't help your search, because search engine bots basically will look at your site when they come to spider it, and they will follow your navigation and all of the links. And you will help yourself with search if you make sure that all your pages are linked into your navigation. Firstly, it makes your site bigger. Secondly, it means that search engine bots can crawl your whole site rather than just the ones that are linked to from the navigation. They may or may not follow text links, but you just make it easier for them and better for yourself if you have included every single page in your website in your navigation. Now, if you're not sure how to do this, or you're not sure where a particular page could go, one of the things you can do is something called a card sort. You can basically put all of your names of your pages on a post-it note each and just stick it on the wall, and then just try and group them into similar groups of information, so what they're about. And that can help to start you to develop your navigation from there, because if you think it's logical, maybe test it on a couple of people. You can make sure that it's in a place where people expect to find it. So that's one of the things you can do if you're not sure where to put the page. But mostly think to yourself, okay, what's this page about? Is it about us as a company? Okay, then it needs to go in about us. Is it about an article about what we've been doing? Okay, it needs to go in the blog. Is it about our accommodation? Okay, it needs to go out room options, it needs to go in accommodation. So try and put it in a logical place, but do make sure that all the pages on your site are included in your navigation. Yeah, so here's another example. I like this one because I always recommend this, and a lot of people still don't do it, but I still think it's good to do, because what it means is we've got what's called a drop down here. This is called a drop down menu. So when I hold my mouse over accommodation, farmhouse, bunkhouse, bridge house, the lodge comes, I can see that immediately. And that is, I think, the extent of the levels of navigation they have in this site. It's not a huge site. If they had pages coming off the lodge, then the other thing you could do is have them flying out here. So the lodge page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, etc. What that means is any page in your site can be accessible from anywhere in the site. So if I'm buried down here in the lodge page 4, I should still be able to see this and hover over these and find any other page in the site wherever I go. So you can, of course, link through buried pages using text, but having them also in the navigation using drop downs and flyouts also means people will who use this as well can find it more easily. So I would really recommend that when you're redesigning your website next, consider having at least drop downs so that people can mouse over here and see what's under accommodation, functions, gallery, guest book, because then they can choose the page they want rather than having to faff about through the site trying to find it. Okay, so do consider drop downs, and if you do have a couple of levels, try to use a flyout as well so that even pages buried down here can be found from any page in the site. Okay, so that's our homepage and our navigation. Make your homepage a great showcase. Make sure people can find their way. Make sure your phone number and your booking button is easily accessible if you have one, or contact us if you take bookings over the phone or via a form. Yeah, make it a great showcase and show people what else is in your site, and it will make it a much more effective tool. So booking path. Sometimes, mostly with the booking buttons that you have as a third party, these are mostly pretty good. Occasionally, though, I do see ones that have been built a while ago, and they're a little bit. They have a few little issues with them. The main thing I see a lot of the time is what's called instructional text, where you write some text like, click on the icon, on the red icon below to book, or use the calendar to find your dates, that sort of stuff. Now, if your booking page is well designed and has what I was talking about, icons and conventions, and differentiates with color and, uses design elements, you shouldn't need instructional text at all. And I guarantee you that about 90% of instructional text is never read. So although you might have spent hours crafting the wonderful copy under your heading, what people will do is they'll read the heading, they'll go straight to the visual bit, and they'll miss out the text. So try not to rely on instructional text if you can. Any text on there should be kind of secondary or possibly in context help. If people hover over question mark, they will get a little paragraph to help them. But try not to rely on written instructions to help people find their way through your booking or path or form, because most of the time it isn't read and it's hard to understand and it's very hard to write clearly. Use design elements, color, use icons, use layouts, use bolding, use fonts, use any kind of design element, and your designer should be able to help you to make it, again, intuitive. Okay, so people can see what to do without being told, so you don't need instructions. One of the other things that's great to do, and I see this a fair bit, is that all the relevant information should be in the same place. So product information, your rates, the availability, your payment process. Progress bar is, if it's a very long process, like if you have maybe 3 or 4 or 5 steps, like choose your date, choose your room, enter your customer details, enter your credit card details, thank you page, or something like that. Qantas is a good example. When you're booking a flight on Qantas, I think they have 5 steps, and they will always show you where you are in the steps. So if you're in step 3, they'll have a little bar filled in on step 3, and also how many more steps there are to go. It's also a good rule of thumb to do this with surveys and things as well. What it means is that the user can see, oh yeah, I'm about halfway, okay? And they can see, oh yeah, 2 more steps to go. And it avoids them thinking, I don't know where I am, I don't know how much longer this is going to take. Is it going to take me 20 minutes? I haven't got 20 minutes, So tell them, if you have a long and complex process, round about 4 or 5 steps, give them a progress bar so they know how many steps there are and where they're up to. Will really help to stop them getting frustrated or getting, worried that they haven't got time, or whatever, or bored, and closing the browser and you're losing the booking. So all relevant information in the same place if you can. And the other thing about the booking path is it should be secure if you are handling people's credit card details or bank details. So HTTPS. So occasionally I do still see bookings taken by email, where people are transmitting credit card details or payment details over email. Email is an unsecured network, and you run the risk of being hacked, a small risk, but nonetheless a risk, and of having your credit card details stolen, which none of us want, of course. So I would really avoid that if you can. It doesn't cost much nowadays to set up a simple 3 or 5 field secure form, and to have that form either go to your email or to a database, depending on how many bookings you're likely to take. It really doesn't cost very much, and I would really, really encourage you, if you haven't done this already, to make sure HTTPS is the secure version of HTTP. It comes in the URL, so HTTP dot backslash, name of your company is not secure. HTTPS colon backslash name of your company is secure, and it means that it can't be hacked, the credit card details can't be read theoretically, and it's much more secure. So if you are taking bookings via email, I would really encourage you not to do that, and just investigate putting up a simple form, if nothing else, that is secure. So an example here, quite like this one because it's got all of the elements in there in the one place, and there's no instructional text here. It's really easy to find. The only text here is a really good question. How many guests? Oh, here are where we do the guests. Okay, so we've got a pick list for how many adults, a pick list child 5 to 16, and a pick list for seniors. So that's much easier than a user having to type in a number and possibly getting it wrong. Where you possibly can, avoid having them type. Try and use preloaded stuff like pick lists where there's much less room for error. It's called error prevention. They've got a calendar where they can type in, or they can use this calendar here, and very strong update button. So information, 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 update. Okay, clear call to action again. I like it also because they're using, again, conventional icons like this. Everyone can recognize that this is a calendar, I assume. I like the language, how many guests commencing, or you could have starting here if you wanted to, but commencing is fine. And then here we have the next 2 weeks worth of bookings. We have what's available, we have the price of the stuff that is available, we have today, so we can see where we are. This is when I did this. Today is a different colour, and if I shifted to here, that would go yellow, and a very clear call to action, book. So it's really easy for the user to check availability, choose a tour, book, check dates, put in their information. There's nothing here that's hard, and there's no text that won't be read. It's what we call intuitive design. So quite like this one. The only text here is no booking fees apply, rates are inclusive of GST. And this again is very relevant information. It's not compensating for poor design, it's giving the user information that they will need to know. So have a look at your booking process, your booking path, and check. Can users check availability, get the price, choose and book all in the one spot? Is it easy for them to enter their information? If not, perhaps you could have a look at redesigning some of it. What I would do, as I said, this is a third-party booking engine, and I would look at a couple of them and just go through the process and think to yourself, is this easy? Have they used colour effectively to differentiate things? Have they used recognised icons? Can I check availability? Can I see the price easily? Is the booking process really easy to follow and simple? The one thing this doesn't have is a progress bar, but that's okay. I don't think it's really needed because I think it's 2 or 3 steps, so that's fine. And again, kind of follows convention, so I think people will be okay. But yeah, lots to like in this one. So contact forms is another thing. So that's booking process. Have a look at yours. Is it easy? Is it intuitive? Does it have the relevant information? Can people find their way without instructions, without help? That's critical. So contact form is another thing I see a lot of. Sometimes, mostly, again, most contact forms I see are great. They're short, to the point, simple, mandatory fields are marked. Occasionally, I do see one that has too many fields and too many mandatory fields. By mandatory fields, I mean the ones that have to have information in them before you can submit the form. So what I would do as a rule of thumb, again, have a look at your contact form and ask yourself, for this transaction, not for future stuff, but for this immediate transaction, what fields are met? What do I really have to have filled in? So I would suspect name and some kind of contact, either phone or email. Anything more than that, in my view, unless you need it for this transaction, it might be phone number if you need to call them for whatever reason. You shouldn't need an address. a residential address. If you're taking a booking over the internet, obviously you're taking payment, you'll need credit card details, expiry date, and the secure number on the back of the card. But that should be enough. So none of this, where did you find us? No pre-tick boxes, yes, I'd like to receive information from you, all those kind of tricks. Don't make them mandatory. It's okay to ask, but what you do, if you make those kind of things that are not essential to the transaction in, this immediate transaction mandatory, you run the risk of people saying, I'm not going to tell you that, closing the booking, going somewhere else, which of course we don't want. In my experience and from what I've read, users will usually be happy to give you information if they can see why you need it. So, I was actually on a donation site for a cause the other day, and I was about to donate, but they just wanted so much information that I couldn't see was relevant. They wanted my home address, they wanted my home phone number, they wanted, a bunch of other things, name my firstborn child. Well, I'm exaggerating, but they wanted a heap of information that they really didn't need. In order for me to make a donation to. I ended up not donating, and I wrote to them and said, you guys don't need this information. You know you don't. So, why are you doing this? It's not helping you, because why should I give you my home address when all you need really is my name and credit card? So anyway, if users can see why you need the information, they're normally okay about giving it, but don't put yourself in a position where the user's going to say, you don't need that, and I'm not going to book with you. So, mandatory, really, really important. The other thing I do see a lot of is live email links in the site. What that means is you leave your site open to a spammer or a phishing website to get your email address, put it in their database, and then spam you forevermore with, girls from Russia and Viagra from the US or Mexico and all those kind of things that you don't want in your inbox. So if you have a live email link on your form, I would take it off. Take the link off. Preferably, I would not have an email address, because even if it doesn't have a link on it, it can still be what we call scraped by a spam bot. But obviously, some people might prefer to have their email address on there, and that's just a bit of a calculated risk for you. How much do I want to risk this? I would take the email out, replace it with a really simple contact form. You only need name, email, message, three fields is enough, and submit, and have that go to your email instead. It's a much more secure way of doing it, and you will keep your inbox much more free of trash than if you have an email link up there. One of the other things I see a bit of, and I always do this when I'm reviewing a website, is I go to the contact form and I press submit without filling anything in to see what happens. And a lot of them that I see will accept the form, which means I presume that you would get an email in your inbox saying somebody has submitted a form, but there's no information there, which is frustrating because it's a potential customer and you could have captured at least a name and a phone number, or a name and an email, and rung them or emailed them and turned them into a sale. So check your contact form, go to it, press submit, and see what happens. What it should do is come back to you to say, please fill in your name, please fill in your whatever the mandatory fields are, so that you have a name and a means of contacting people when it gets into your inbox. It shouldn't accept the form without at least those pieces of information. So check yours. The other thing I do find, CAPTCHA, which is the security little device at the bottom of some forms that people use in order to make sure that the person submitting the form is a human being and not, again, a spam bot or a bot. Sometimes these can be really hard to read and really hard to see. So try not to make that the bit where the horse stumbles. Try not to make your CAPTCHA the bit that is the hardest thing on the form and that is too hard. Because remember, think about your audience base. They're not all going to be 20-year-olds. Some of them are going to have less vision than others. They might be colorblind. They might not be blind, but they might need glasses, and they might just have reduced sight. They might be over 50 or over 55 or whatever. I can say that because I am, and I do, and they can't see these things. They're harder to see. So at the very least, have the means where they can have the CAPTCHA box read to them, or preferably make it something really simple that only a human can answer, like a simple mathematical question, or a simple question like, what is the season after summer? Now, a bot's not going to be able to answer that, but a human being can. So have a look at your form, have a look at your CAPTCHA and think, is that hard? Is that going to be too hard for someone who might have slightly less than 20/20 vision? And don't make that kind of the stumbling block for people contacting you, because obviously the contact form, as well as your booking path, is the critical part of your website. You spent all this time and effort having beautiful images and intuitive navigation and great text and wonderful stuff up there, and people get convinced, and then they go to contact you. You obviously need this to work the best of all, because this isn't where you want to lose them, because you spend all this effort getting them there. So have a look at your contact form and make sure it's as easy to use as possible and doesn't get in the way of your transaction. So here's a couple of examples. I've just taken some from different forms here. This one here first, send us a message, name, email, subject, message. Note, she's marked mandatory here with the asterisk, and again, coming back to conventional design elements, an asterisk is now kind of accepted. People kind of get that an asterisk means that it's mandatory. You can do what this designer's done and have an asterisk with the word required next to it, which is also fine. Kind of comes down to the look and feel of your site, and how uncluttered you want it to be, and also what you think your audience will understand. That's kind of, again, a bit of a judgment call for you and your designer. But note how she's only got name and email, so someone has to fill this in. And when they click send message, if they haven't filled it in, it will come back to say, please fill in your name, please fill in your email. So she has got a means of contacting them, and she's got a name, so she knows what to call them. You don't need a subject, you don't need a message, really. It's great if they type it in, but you can, if you've got the email, obviously email them or phone them if it's phone, and ask them what they wanted. So she hasn't made too many mandatory fields here. She's only got two. She's got subject, message. Beautiful, clear, simple, easy, won't get in the way. Nice call to action, send message. This one has submit. Submit is conventional, but send message is also fine because it's clear what happens next and what will happen when you press this button. This one's a bit longer. Required, so title is not required, optional. First name, last name, best contact number, email address. Number of people is not mandatory. Preferred tour dates is not mandatory, because you can find that out, obviously. If you've already got an email address or a phone number, you can get in touch with them and find out when they want to come and how many people. I'm not 100% sure about first name and last name. It would depend on how your database is set up, and if you want that to go straight into your database, okay. To my mind, I would probably just have name, but again, it's a bit of a judgment call for you. It's not that big a deal. Contact number, and again, you don't have to have both of these as mandatories if you don't want to. This is okay, but this runs less risk of losing people. But there's not too much to be worried about here. Where I'd be worried was if there was, where did you find us? How many people do you have? What kind of a browser are you using? Information that you should be able to find out from places like analytics, or asking them face to face when they come, or that sort of stuff. I would be more worried if there were 10 fields of mandatory information that is not relevant directly to this task, which is getting in touch to make an inquiry. Okay, so leave your marketing research questions for another day. Find out the information another way, through an online survey, or through analytics, or just asking people when they register or whatever. So I was talking about capture. Two examples of capture here. They can get very hard to read and very complicated. I quite like this one because a bot would not be able to read this, but it's not too confusing. We can see what the numbers are here. And also you have an opportunity to reset it if you don't get it right. This one I prefer. This is actually on my own website, my Jane Wrights Digital website, and a bot can't fill this in, but a human can, and it's not a hard, I think it only ever adds up to 10. So someone that's a bit numerically challenged wouldn't have a problem with it. So this, I think, is a WordPress plugin. If your site is in WordPress and you don't already have this, it's possible to just attach that plugin to your site. And it just means 1 + blah equals 2, and you get a couple of those, so if you're not that good at maths. But this is very easy to see, simple to do, and it differentiates you as a human rather than a spam bot, which is what the whole purpose of a capture is. So I would definitely have some kind of capture on your form if you don't already, so that you, again, make your form more secure and less risk of it being being contacted by phishing websites, but make it simple and clear and easy to see. So that's contact forms. Okay, so analytics, sometimes, not that often now, I think most people kind of understand that what analytics can do, but sometimes I do see that there aren't any analytics in a particular website, what that means, if you don't have analytics on your site, if you're not familiar with what analytics can do for you, what you can do is track a lot of data about how people come to your site, what they do in your site and how many people come, what countries they come from, how old they are, whether they're male or female, a huge amount of information that can really help you both in your marketing and sales and your product development, but also in making your website really effective. For example, it can show you if people are dropping out of your website at a particular page. And if you can see that 70 odd % of your traffic is dropping off at the home page, then maybe you could have a look at your homepage and try to figure out why. Is it your navigation isn't clear? Is it people were expecting something else? Don't know. If they're dropping off at your accommodation page, 70% or so are stopping and leaving the site there, then you can have a look at your accommodation, think, can they not find what they're looking for? There's a lot of tools you can use to test that, but at the very least, I would put, and Google Analytics is free. It's not hard to set up. We have a webinar actually on it, and I think we do. We have a couple of webinar recordings on YouTube about analytics and measurement. If you need help, though, more than happy to help you at any time over the phone. Just give us a call at the Digital Coach line and we can talk you through it. But in principle, it's simply a matter of creating a Google account if you don't have one already, so a Gmail account or whatever you already have. Logging onto analytics with that, putting in your website domain name, your website address. Google will then send you a line of strange code of letters and numbers, and you just simply copy that and paste it into your site, normally the header or the footer. So it's not terribly complicated to do. Whoever looks after your website probably wouldn't have any trouble doing it. And it's really, for the amount of data that you can get, both about your users, the people that are coming to your site, and also what they're doing on your site, really, really helpful. So if you don't have it already, I would really recommend that you do. This is just a snapshot of the kind of information that you can get from analytics if you're not familiar with it. So it can show you stuff like site visitation, when your site's going up and down, which means if you have a particular ad in market or a particular campaign in market and you notice your traffic has spiked here, then that will give you an indication that it was a successful campaign. Bounce rate, it can show you if people are coming to your site leaving immediately. This isn't too bad. Anything under about 40% is good. If it's 70 or 80%, I'd be a bit worried and having a look at my site. There's a whole bunch of information that it's not an analytics webinar today, but we do have one. But I'll just quickly show you what's possible to get. It can show you so this website, most of its visitors are coming from America. So if you've got a campaign for, e.g., China or Germany or somewhere, and you suddenly see that most of your visitors are coming from here for this period of time, this month, then obviously your campaign's working. You can even drill down to, if it's mostly from Australia, which I expect it would be, you can drill down to the city, you can drill down to the state and then the city, which is really helpful. So a lot of great information here. And you can see how much of your traffic is coming directly, people type in the URL, via a search engine or from linked sites. And a whole bunch of information about whether they're using mobile to find you, whether they're using a desktop, what browsers they're using, huge amount of really useful information. So if you're interested and you're not that familiar with analytics, how to measure and track your online success, I've done that a couple of times. So there's a couple of recordings on YouTube about that one. It's also live on the 4th of March. So in a fortnight, we'll be repeating it again. So a little plug, register for that if you want to, because I do spend a bit of time on analytics. But if you don't want to or don't have time, then have a look at the recording that I did a while back, because it can get you started basically. Okay, just a question. Yeah, Cecile, if you don't have one, it really depends on how your form has been built. If your website, I'm not sure about your website, I'll have a look this afternoon for you. If your website has been built in WordPress, then it's what's called a WordPress plugin that you simply drag into your site. Not sure about other ones, but I will have a look, if you like, at your site and perhaps give you a call or send you an email this afternoon with the answer. I don't think it's that difficult to add. Like most things, it's simply a line or two of code. But I will have a look and check out some options for you and get back in touch with you this afternoon if that's okay. Yeah. So Yeah, that's analytics. If you don't have analytics on your site, I would really recommend you get it. Google is free. There are other paid ones and, different options, but Google's, to my mind, kind of a no-brainer because it's not collecting individual data about you. Yeah, it's all aggregate data, so don't be concerned. I wouldn't be concerned about that. And it's for that trade-off, for the amount of information that you get, really worth it. So one of the other things I do see a bit of is readability in terms of too many words on a page. Either there's too much text that's too wordy, or you're requiring the user to scroll a long way to read everything. And as you can see, I mean, this is a bit of an extreme example, but I'll put one up in front of you so you can see it's quite difficult and daunting to read a lot of text online, especially if it's not broken up at all. Now, I wouldn't want to read all of this, and it's a terms and conditions, so I suspect there might be a little agenda here. People don't want you to read it, I don't know, but this would be really hard to read. And so if you're requiring people to scroll a long way to get all the information, they get what's called fatigue. They get a bit bored and they get a bit tired. And also, especially people like dyslexics and people with orientation issues do get quite disoriented by scrolling. They have to kind of refocus on the page, and that can be quite hard. And we want to make it easy for our users, make it as easy and intuitive as possible to use your site. So it's a simple thing to avoid. Make your copy readable and visible. So a couple of tips for that. Again, we actually do have a webinar on this, Writing for the Web, and again, it's coming up, Writing for Website Copy. I'll be delivering that in a couple of weeks' time, but we also have it pre-recorded, Writing for the Web, and so if you want more information, by all means, just hop onto YouTube and search Digital Ready Webinar, and Writing for the Web should come up. But in a nutshell, in one slide, keep your sentences short. Make sure your sentences aren't too long, maybe 15 to 20 words, short as you can, and only one idea. So if you've got a long sentence or it's got two ideas in it, full stop, start the next one. Small paragraphs, just a couple of lines, even one sentence could be a paragraph. Lots of white space on the page, much easier to read than what we just saw here. You can see there's no white space here, and it's really hard to orient yourself and to read everything. Yeah, so short sentences, small paragraphs, white space. It's fine to have return marks. Headings and subheadings can break up the text if you do have to have a long page, if it's an article or something and it's 300 words or whatever. Have a clear heading and then have subheadings to summarize every paragraph or couple of paragraphs so that people can kind of use those. Because what users will do is they won't read all the words, they'll just scan the page normally, and they'll look for visual cues, things that stand out on the page, to find their way and find what they're interested in. You want to help them do that. You don't want to make them read every word of your copy because, chances are they get frustrated and bored and leave, which is what we don't want. So make it easy for them by using headings and breaking up a long article with subheadings. Clear calls to action, again, critical, so tell them what to do. Visual cues are great, using colour or bolding for important information. From what I read, people used to say bolding will help your search. I'm not sure that that's the case so much anymore, but it does help the user to pick out keywords from a maze of text, so that can be effective too. And the other thing is, if you do have a very long page with a lot of information in it, ask yourself, can I break this up? Can I break it into 2 or 3 pages instead, with their own heading and subheading and their own navigation, so that people don't have to scroll so much and don't have to read quite so much, and they can kind of self-select the information they're most interested in. And again, this is coming back to my drop-down flyout navigation so that you can access every page in the site. So if you do have a long page, think to yourself, can I break this up into a couple of topics, a couple of pages, and then make it accessible through drop-downs or flyouts or both. Don't go the way of one I did see where she had hardly any words at all. You do need words on your page, both for your user and obviously for search engine bots to find and to scroll. You do, don't just have a list, a bulleted list as page copy, but just don't make it like too wordy, don't make it too verbal, not as wordy as you would have possibly in a print brochure. Keep it economical, kind of a happy medium between what you might write for print and a very stark bulleted list, kind of somewhere in between. Hope I haven't confused you with that. Okay, so here's just an example here. This is a kayak company in 1770, and why I like this one, a couple of things, is they bolded these words. Now, it's probably looks to me like they bolded them mainly for search, but also some of the keywords weekends, school holidays, phone number, book your hire. Okay, so this is what the reader will see. Count of 1770 ideal. Okay, a little bit long to my mind. They could have had a shorter one, but this is okay. It's nice. It's readable. May or may not read this. We'll probably read this, 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 and this. And this is key information. Okay, so that's one of the things you can do. Don't go overboard. Just what is the critical information here? Okay, you could consider bolding it. The other thing I like here is they've got their prices in a different colour, and it's big and it's a different font. So this will attract the eye as well. So they come onto this page, may or may not read this, may or may not read this, probably will see this. Even if they just glance at the page, they'll probably see that. And this is really important information from from the point of view of the user. That's what they're going to be looking for. It's critical information. It's how much, what's the availability, what else can I do, that sort of stuff. So they've done it in orange, which is part of their brand. It's one of their brand colours, and in a bit of a different font. And it's very clear, $20 per hour, $30 for 2 hours, $10 for the third hour. That's really clear and easy to understand. So that's why I like this copy. I also like that they've got room between the paragraphs, small paragraphs. The sentences are long, but they're okay. It's nice. Why not hire a kayak and explore the beauty of Round Creek Hill on your own? Full stop. That's nice. One more sentence, then we get a break. So there's visual breaks here for the eye. One sentence here as a paragraph. That's great. That can be really effective, especially if this is your most important sentence. It might be the only one they read. So lots of things to like on this one. Different colour, bolding, white, or in this case grey because that's the background, but white space, short sentences, small paragraphs. I like it. Another one, I quite like this one. So energy, waste, water, carbon footprint. This is all about this eco-friendly, environmentally friendly resort. And the paragraphs are quite long and the language is a little bit formal, but that's again a bit of a judgment call for them. But why I've shown it to you is because I like these subheadings. This is about energy, this is about waste, this is about water, and it's about carbon footprint. The heading of the page is something like how we're environmentally friendly or something. So that kind of summarises the whole page. And then what people can do is use these subheadings to navigate the page and see the bit they're interested in. They might only be interested in, e.g., carbon footprint. They might only be interested in what they do about water. So I like this because they can use this and use the subheadings to navigate through the page. And I like this one, again, white space, small paragraphs, nice copy, strong heading, and contact us. Different colour stands out on the page. So again, another way of doing it. And this is all the information that's on this page. That's it. There's no scrolling. So there's no unnecessary words. There's not too much copy. It all fits on the screen. And there's a clear call to action here. Yep. Okay, so that's copy. Again, if you want more help with copy, have a look at our webinar in a couple of weeks. Register for that one, or have a look at the recording in your own time, or by all means get in touch with me. I'm really happy to review the copy on your website, give you some tips, coach you through it, teach you, no problem at all. Happy to do that at a time that suits. The other thing I do see a bit of, not so much now with the advent of things like WordPress, but still lingering a little bit, is people have a really difficult process to update their website. And of course, why that's a problem, firstly, because it's difficult and time consuming. You're busy running your business. You don't want to hassle about keeping your website up to date. That's the first thing. So it would be great if it could be easy and intuitive for you, usability of a CMS. So that's one thing. But obviously, one of the things we read all the time about search engine optimization is regularly refreshed content can really help your rankings currently. Today, Google changes all the time, as you probably know, but at the moment, it seems to be all about fresh content from what I read. And so if it's difficult for you to update your website with a new paragraph or, regularly, or a blog post or photo or whatever, and put fresh content up, that's going to probably affect your search engine rankings. So ease of updates is getting even more important than it ever was, not only for your own convenience when you're busy, but also for your search. So if you don't have that arrangement in place, I do understand how hard that can be. So what I see sometimes, it's very difficult or time consuming to update your website. Often what I see is that the person that's developed the website either has something in the contract to say you must come through me to update it, or they've built their own content management system, their own system to update it that is really quite hard to use. So I wouldn't recommend either of those. I don't want to cut across any contracts that are existing or in place, but it just makes it harder for you. What I would suggest is next time you go to update your website, is choose a CMS, content management system. By content management system, we mean something you can log on to that's web-based, and you can change the text, change the photos, change the images, all that sort of stuff, add widgets and things, depending on how much you want to do, but at least change the text, that it's easy for you to do. And the one that we think is the easiest for tourism operators, one of the ones is WordPress. So if you are going to be redoing your website, I would recommend that you choose a developer that develops a website in WordPress and then get them to train you in how to do it. WordPress is quite easy to use. If you can use a word processor, you can at least update the text because it's all very similar. Or some kind of CMS, content management system, have a look at it first, whatever one they're proposing, and just try and use it yourself and see if you think it's easy to use or not. And I would definitely make that part of your criteria for choosing whoever's going to develop your website. So that's the first thing. Ideally, have a content management system that you can just manage when you've got time, so you can slot in updates, in between taking registrations or going out on the tour or whatever, so it's at your convenience. If that isn't possible, and I realise sometimes it isn't, then perhaps if you could kind of get your developer to reserve time every week, or reserve a regular spot of time for updates, and you can just send them through and they can do them all, say, weekly or fortnightly or whatever. That will obviously probably be more economical for you too, because usually these kind of agreements you're paying by the hour, and you don't want to pay for an hour's worth of work to change one word or whatever. So, if you have an agreement where you can kind of send everything through and they can do it weekly, and they know it's weekly, and so they put aside the time, and you know that that's coming up, so you get yourself organised. That can be a good way of managing it. So try and have a situation where it's easy and simple and intuitive for you to update your own website as well. Okay, so that kind of brings us to the end of the unique information I wanted to give you today on common traps with websites. I've just got a couple of regular slides that we take everyone through, and then I'm quite happy to take questions if anyone has any so far. But anyway, let's just run through our normal regular slides. A little bit on copyright. If you haven't attended a TEQ webinar before, we always have this slide, basically just to make you aware as a standard thing about online copyright. It is starting to get a bit more of an issue, and the last thing we want you to do is to fall foul of the law. So just to let you know, copyright applies online as well as offline. If you don't own an image or a video or some text or something, or have written permission, I would go with written permission via email or something to use it, then don't. So if there's an image you want to use, you know who the owner is, get in touch with them and say, may I use it? And they'll say yes or no. If they say yes, there'll probably be some conditions like yes, link to my website, acknowledge me, whatever. If you don't own it or have permission to use it, then don't use it, is our rule of thumb. Best, I know it's really easy to go into Google Images, find a great image, right click, copy, put it on your website. Really wouldn't recommend you do that unless it's under a Creative Commons that says you can use it for commercial purposes, because it's an infringement of copyright, and you don't want to fall foul of the law again. Google has introduced image search or image matching now, where you can actually upload an image and search for matches of that image. Very easy for someone who's an image owner to upload their own image, see how many websites have it on, and send you a letter saying you now owe me money for using my image. So we don't want that to happen to you, so best not to use Google. Even if you're not aware of the law, unfortunately that's not a defence. One of the good things you can do is there are stock photo sites like iStock, Shutterstock, and they have licensing. You can just buy a subscription to them and use, depending on how many you buy, use images throughout the year. Wikimedia Commons is another one. Often people put their work up there and they say you can use it under these criteria. It's normally acknowledgement of the author and a link to their site, and there may be some other conditions around it, so that's another good place to use. But preferably, shoot your own. Use a smartphone, use a good digital camera, make your own, and use those because you own them. If you need more help, We have the Tourism E-Kit, the Big Marketing Guide, the TQ Resource Centre and the Better Business Guide. These are all on the website, on the Tourism and Events Queensland website. By all means, log on there and go to marketing and see what you can find. There's a lot of resources there for industry operators. We have a webinar every Tuesday at 11 a.m. to help you, like this one, on different topics. Coming up next week, Susan will do how to use YouTube to promote your business, which is always a very popular one because people are very keen on video. Following that one, I will be doing measurement and tracking, and that will be the analytics one, and also be introducing some other measurement tools that you can use. We have working with a web developer, so how to choose a good developer you can work with, and also how to manage that relationship so it's mutually effective. How to deliver great customer service online, and I will be doing, I think it's me, handy search engine optimization tips as well. Here is the link to register. www.queensland.com/digitalready. If you can't find that, just go to Google and type in Digital Ready Webinar and the link should come up. You can register here online, and I would encourage you to if you've got time. If not, as I said, we record these and put them on YouTube so you can look at any of them. Oh, breaking news, another little plug. Q Talks, we're having a conference, Digital Big Bang, 2nd of June, all day at Ridges. We're in talks with the major digital organisations that you would normally deal with in social media and other ones as well. And they're going to be giving presentations, the ones that we get, and we've got a few secured already, and really good tips for industry. So I would encourage you to, early bird registrations are on now, so I'd encourage you to register online for that at Eventbrite. There's the link. Have a look and see if you're interested. Workshops, mentoring, we have workshops in your region. We have mentoring sessions, one-on-one, coaching service by phone or email, and webinars. So lots of help for you. Feel free to get onto the Digital Ready website and get in touch with us. I'm Jane. I'm invisible in this one, but there's Mirko and Susan. Here's our phone number and our email. Feel free to contact us anytime if you need help with anything digital. More than happy to help. Okay, that brings us to the end of our webinar. I'm really happy to take questions now if anyone has any. Otherwise, if you don't, thank you very much for your attendance. I hope it's been helpful, and please do feel free to either register for another webinar, view them on YouTube, or get in touch with me at TEQ anytime. More than happy to help. Any questions? Nope. Okay, well, thanks everyone. Look forward to seeing you at another webinar. Thanks very much. Bye-bye. Oh, hand raised.